Hey guys, this is Dawson Discussions, and my name is Nathan Noah Dawson Jr. Today's date is December 24th, 2021. In this video, I'll be talking about the case of group economics and how I think this can actually make Black America more competitively economic here in the United States of America. So stay tuned. So what is group economics? Well, while there's no formal definition of the term group economics can be defined as a group of people, in this video's case, Black America, who have a common economic interest. That group agrees to actively and consciously pursue that economic interest together to create a sustainable and secure economy for themselves. It is where people who pool their resources together to accomplish something they otherwise may not be able to do as individuals in the context of the Black community. It is often been used to talk about the importance of creating and supporting Black-owned businesses that in turn support the larger Black population in the United States of America. Group economics is neither new nor racist because many communities in America practice this strategy. The Jewish community in the United States of America, the Italian American community in the United States of America, the Hispanic Latin community in the United States of America, the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities in the United States of America, the Arab community in the United States of America, and countless others. And they all use group economics, which is a form of self-preservation. Group economics was also very successful by the many thriving Black communities from the 1890s all the way up to the 1920s. The Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example, Redwood, Florida, and Wilmington, North Carolina are the three most popular, yet there were many others in America. And in my opinion, and it could be argued as a fact, that Black Americans really do need to revisit group economics immediately. So I got the idea of group economics from Dr. Claud Anderson. So Dr. Claud Anderson, he's the president of PowerNomics Corporation of America, Incorporated, and the Harvard Institute, Incorporated. So essentially, PowerNomics is a company that publishes his books and produces multimedia presentations in which he explains his concept of PowerNomics. PowerNomics is the package of principles and strategies he developed to explain the concept of race and to offer a guide for Black America to become more economically and politically competitive group in the United States of America. So here's a little bit more information about Dr. Claud Anderson and his credentials. Dr. Claud Anderson was state coordinator of education for Florida under Governor Reubin Askew during the tumultuous period of the 1970s. After successful social reforms projects in Florida and leading President Jimmy Carter's Florida campaign to win in that state, Carter appointed Anderson as the federal co-chairman for a commission of governors in the southeast states. In that position, rank of Assistant Secretary in the U.S. Department of Commerce, he chaired the commission, funded and directed the economic development projects for the governors in those states. The projects he funded created jobs and businesses in those states. As executive director of two economic development corporations for the city of Miami, Florida, he oversaw funding of more than 30 businesses. Although he has been a political independent for many years, he was a major planner and coordinator for the 1988 Democratic Convention in Atlanta, Georgia, and has taught at all levels of education. Dr. Anderson is also president of the Harvard Institute, which is a nationally recognized think tank that does research, policy development, education, and advocacy to increase the self-sufficiency of Black America. Dr. Anderson's book, The Black Labor White Wealth, A Search for Power and Economic Justice, and PowerNomics, the National Plan, are foundations for his Harvard Institute programs. Dr. Anderson's first book is Black Labor White Wealth, A Search for Power and Economic Justice, which came out in August 1994, a few months before I was even born. And that book is this one. Dr. Anderson's first book is a classic. It tracks slavery and Jim Crow public policies that use Black labor to construct a superpower nation. It details how Black people were socially engineered into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game in which they are neither playing or winning. Black labor is a comprehensive analysis of the issues of race. Dr. Anderson uses the analysis in this book to offer solutions to America's race problems. And Dr. Claud Anderson is him right there. Dr. Anderson's second book is Dirty Little Secrets. Dirty Little Secrets about Black history, its heroes, and other troublemakers. And this book came out December 1st, 1997. And around that time, I was 3 years old, in order to put things into perspective about when these books came out and my age. Anyway. So to date, history remains largely white history. Black people as a race are virtually non-existent when historical events are described in textbooks, movies, and centennial celebrations. Their role in America is most often that of cotton pickers, marchers, or rioters. Black history narrowly limits contributions of blacks to a familiar list to 10 to 15 individuals when, in fact, blacks, though enslaved and powerless, had a profound and indelible influence on the American socioeconomic system. Black labor was the engine that drove this nation and civilization around the world. Slavery and its legacy shape and continue to reveal this nation's cultural, moral, and ethical hypocrisy. The products of black labor created industrial revolutions in Britain and America. They produced social tensions that led to the Revolutionary War, Civil War, Reconstruction, and a national civil rights movement. Much information about race remains lost or buried in all laws, bills of sales, newspaper reports, letters, economic analysis, and personal diaries. The purpose of this book is to unearth and expose some of dirty little secrets hidden in the darkness of history. For example, did you know that even without the benefit of a formal education, newly freed black slaves filed for and were awarded more than 300 invention patents between 1870 and 1900? Also, a number of high-level elected officials, including presidents, vice presidents, and members of the U.S. Senate, had black blood and black mistresses. These are but a few of many little known, dirty little secrets about black history, its heroes, and other troublemakers. Dr. Anderson's third book is PowerNomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. Came out February 2001. So again, Dr. Anderson's third book, PowerNomics, a National Plan to Empower Black America, came out February 2001. And to put things into perspective, I was in grade 1. And I think I was about 6 years old, if my math serves me correctly. Anyway, this is his book, third book actually. Well, actually, yeah. So, PowerNomics. So again, going back to what I said earlier about PowerNomics. So PowerNomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, is a 5-year plan in order to make Black America a prosperous and an empowered race that is self-sufficient and competitive as a group by the year 2005. In this book, Dr. Anderson obliterates the myths and illusions of Black progress and brings together data and information from many different sources to construct a frame made for solutions to the dilemma of Black America. So in her book, PowerNomics, Dr. Anderson proposes new principles, strategies, and concepts that allow Blacks a new way to see, think, and behave in race matters. The new mindset prepares Blacks to take strategic steps to create a new reality for their race. It offers guidance to others who support Black self-sufficiency. In this book, Dr. Anderson offers insightful analysis and action steps Blacks can take to redesign core areas of life, education, economics, politics, and religion to better benefit their race. The action steps in each area requires new empowerment tools that Dr. Anderson presents, a new group vision, and a new culture of empowerment, tools designed to counter, if not break, many of the racial monopolies in society. Vertical integration and industrializing Black communities are other major concepts and strategies that he presents in the book. He places a great deal of importance on building industries in Black communities that are constructed upon group competitive advantages. And also, Dr. Anderson's fourth book is More Dirty Little Secrets About Black History, Its Heroes, and Other Troublemakers. Volume 2. The book came out December 9th, 2005. And to put things to perspective, in 2005, I was actually 11 years old. More Dirty Little Secrets About Black History, Its Heroes, and Other Troublemakers, Volume 2. is Dr. Claud Anderson's fourth book, written with his son Brent Anderson. This book is a compilation of little-known facts that highlight the talents, achievements, heroic deeds, and sometimes misdeeds of blacks in America. It leads the reader to conclude that black people have a unique journey in these United States, unlike any other group of people, and have been directly or indirectly involved in every aspect of American history. This book includes numerous historical notes about whites who display heroic or ignoble behavior towards black Americans. More Dirty Little Secrets is a continuation of Dr. Anderson's earlier #1 bestseller, Dirty Little Secrets, which was, again, this book. So essentially, More Dirty Little Secrets is actually a sequel to this book. So, of course, Dirty Little Secrets was the first book. And then he wrote this one. So these two are kind of sequels. And of course, Dr. Anderson's fifth and most recent book is A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Came out May 26, 2018, which is a few years ago. Dr. Claud Anderson's fifth and most recent book, A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. In this book, Dr. Anderson written it to highlight and examine the ignored social contract on race, its effects on black Americans, and strategies they can use to take advantage of its weaknesses. Using a Q&A or question and answer format, Dr. Anderson focuses on the etiology or the origins of white racism embedded within the social contract, or the social construct. So for nearly 500 years, blacks in America have lived within a continuum of socioeconomic systems, legalized slavery, Jim Crow segregation, and now political correctness that maldistributed nearly 100% of the nation's wealth, land, resources, rights, privileges, and controls of all levels of government into the hands of whites. Simultaneously, those systems consign blacks into an impoverished, powerless underclass. Denied the fruit of their labor, freedom, and basic rights, it was impossible for blacks to be anything other than what white society wanted them to be. The U.S. Constitution, the court system, and major corporations were all complicit in locking blacks into a carefully designed social contract on race. That social contract, instituted even before the official founding of the nation, was so culturally entrenched that not the Civil War, the Black Civil Rights Movement, or social integration could significantly alter its effects. And there you have it. Those are all the 5 books that Dr. Claud Anderson had written. Black Labor, White Wealth, A Search for Power and Economic Justice, came out in 1994. August 1994. I wasn't even born yet when that book came out, when this book came out. Second book, Dirty Little Secrets, about black history, its heroes, and other troublemakers, came out a few years after this book. After that, in 2001, he wrote PowerNomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. This book came out in 2001. And of course, 2001, I was in first grade, probably about 5 years old. Then after that, he wrote More Dirty Little Secrets, which was a sequel to the first Dirty Little Secrets. So More Dirty Little Secrets Volume 2 came out. And his most recent book, A Black History Reader. But in the context of this video, I'm actually going to go back to his third book, PowerNomics. Okay, so essentially, Jewish Americans, Asian Americans, the Pacific Islander community, and the Hispanic Latin community are the groups that most often held up as the cultural models of success. Jews are one of the most successful immigrants to enter the United States because of their economic success. It's attributed to their cultural values of being thrifty, ambitious, commercially aggressive, and being close-knit. They are known for their business acumen and cultural ethic of taking care of its members of their own community. But Jews had occupational skills that were years old that allowed them to capture certain industries and move immediately into semi-skilled and fully skilled positions in factories. Jews then became rich and powerful in America, in part because of their cultural values, but more because they were accepted and allowed to be empowered by America's culture. They built a new culture around their economic base, which empowered them even more. Those ethnic groups ranked higher in the pecking order than black people as a whole, even before they set foot on American soil. Both Asians and Cubans came to this country as well-educated immigrants. During the 1960s and the 1970s, half of the Cuban immigrants entering Florida were professional people. 52 Korean businesses in 4 cities found that 70% of the owners had a college education. This nation unfairly compares some of the brightest Asians and Cuban immigrants against the whole of Black America. Whites have combined the myth of biological inferiority with a notion of cultural inferiority. Cultural inferiority and deprivation. The mainstream society has demonstrated it has no responsibility or interest in helping Black Americans' cultural house in order. Therefore, we alone as Black Americans must now construct our own culture of empowerment. Our culture must promote an ethic that we are a special people. We are the only non-immigrant group of people in this nation. So where does wealth come from? Since Black Americans' primary problem is the lack of wealth, then a primary part of the solution must be for Blacks to gain wealth. Wealth actually comes from creation or acquired through redistribution, also through inheritance or profit from somebody else's labor. So essentially, the secret to creating wealth is to own and control resources: natural, land, water, the precious minerals and metals, process, machinery, technology, factories, public improvement, and or human capital. Skilled, literate labor workforce. There is no wealth potential in a job. The owner and producer of a job have much more wealth potential. And just like how people say that job is just an acronym for just over broke. JOB, just over broke. And of course, many people would always tell the Black community to get a job and pull yourselves up by the bootstraps, and then we will be wealthy beyond our wildest dreams. But in reality, that's not really a path to wealth. Jobs provide income, not wealth. You can't really transfer a job to your kids, grandkids, and your great-grandkids. Jobs can also be easily outsourced to a different country or be replaced by artificial means, usually through artificial intelligence, automation, or being technologically advanced through algorithms, or technology advanced through certain algorithms, machine learning, and whatnot. So essentially, the difference between wealth and income is the monetary return that accrue or is expected to rise at a fixed time intervals. Income is helpful for funding day-to-day expenditures. It is a vital component for everyday living purposes, because whenever you budget, you actually budget your income, not necessarily your wealth. Essentially, what wealth is actually the current value of the total assets possessed by any individual, country, society, or company in a potential market. It is mainly the aggregate of all intangible and tangible assets owned by that could be exchanged in terms of money. Investments, real estate, land, savings, cash, and other valuable commodities, less all kinds of the liabilities, in which your liabilities or financial obligations that are due to a different household or company or a creditor of some sort and whatnot. Just money that you owe that you have to tap into in order to pay them off, or else you will be or else legal actions will proceed against you, such as creditors will be calling you and then it's going to ruin your credit score. Or maybe if you're like a business owner and then some atrocious happened and now you're being sued, and then now you have to pay money, and then that's not actually going to be an asset that's going to make you money. It's actually going to be a liability because it's going to cost you money. Also, the money stream for various factors of production is your income. Unlike wealth, which is the market price of an asset possessed by households, individuals, or a company. An individual, household, or a firm receives or earns income during a limited period, but oppositely, you can actually accumulate wealth over a long period of time. As time goes on, you acquire more wealth. But income is just that short burst that you can actually get into. So income doesn't really last long. It doesn't really grow on its own, but rather wealth. When you have wealth, over time, it compounds and then it grows. Okay, moving on. Mainstream economy and white majority. So, in a competitive and race-based society, why would the majority of white society want to throw the doors of economic opportunity wide open to black people? Now, Michael E. Porter, a professor of urban economic development at Harvard Business School, he said in his book on competition that the numerous business advantages that can be found in urban cities. The major shortcoming of his model from the perspective of PowerNomics is that it doesn't intend to make Black America to be self-sufficient and competitive within their own communities. It's a model for economic growth for non-Blacks within Black neighborhoods. The lack of jobs is a symptom of the lack of Black wealth and Black-owned businesses. Porter's economic model would be more of a positive for Blacks if it encouraged and guided Black entrepreneurs and investors to compete and keep control of their own communities and cities by revitalizing, building, owning, and controlling their businesses. A new orientation. The new orientation for Black America is the practice of group economics. The primary goal of practicing group economics is to draw wealth, income, and other resources into Black communities and to make them more economic self-sufficient and competitive. It is to be built on the understanding the wealth production and getting ahead of the curve, not following it. Technology, wealth, and a new orientation. Technology has always been just as much a political tool as it's been an economic tool. Computer-driven tech is not necessarily a friend of Black people. Never been the major owners, producers, or controllers of tech. In the early 1900s, cotton picking machines could pick 50 times more cotton per hour, forcing Black Americans to leave the cotton fields and move north in search of work. Automated machinery forced most Blacks from the steel mills, automobile production lines, chemical factories of the north onto welfare, criminal, and employment roles of urban areas. A new orientation to group economics requires understanding the cycle of wealth, natural resources, then human labor, mid-1960s, technology, and phase for information manipulation of symbols. Since Blacks have yet to capture and benefit from the tech phase, they can seize a strategically competitive position by advancing directly to the first phase. Control of the natural resources. Build vertical industries and practice group economics. Granted, IT is information technology is extremely valuable, but at some point in the fourth phase, it will become a perishable resource. Technology will falter and humans will be at risk. Tech-driven information will decrease while the value of tangible goods and human labor will then increase. Devaluation can be triggered by man-made causes, such as a computer virus, accidents, or any uncontrollable natural disasters, like a terrible flood, a really terrible hurricane, earthquakes, tornadoes, and whatnot. And then, of course, with all that, it's going to go right back to natural resources. Also, speaking of technology, according to the estimates from the McKinsey Global Institute, companies have already invested between $20 billion and $30 billion in artificial technology and applications. African Americans start from a deprived position in the workforce with an unemployment rate twice of that of white workers, a pattern that persists even when controlling for education, the duration of unemployment, and the cause of unemployment. The prior research shows that African Americans can experience the disruptive forces of automation from a distinctly disadvantaged position, partially because they are overly represented in the support roles that most are likely to be affected by automation, such as truck drivers, food service workers, and also office clerks. By the 2030, the employment outlook for African Americans, particularly men, young workers between 18 and 35, and those without a college degree, may worsen dramatically. Additionally, we find that African Americans are geographically removed from future job growth and more likely to be concentrated in areas of job decline. These trends, if not addressed, could have a significant effect on the on income generation, the wealth, and the stability of African American families. African Americans are overrepresented in occupations likely to be most affected by automation, and this remains accurate for McKinsey's 2030 projection. So again, the industries that we're overly represented in would be office support, food service, and production work industries, whereas African Americans are underrepresented in professions such as education, health, business, and legal, in which there could be a net gain in jobs. Okay, what are the steps to conducting group economics? Again, there's a chapter in this book dedicated to group economics. So here we go. Step 1: create an alternative economy within Black communities. Essentially, the Black American alternate economy needs to start in order to address its business, employment, housing, wealth, and capital needs. Our economy should be small but competitive. A small business community that exists outside of, but is complementary to the mainstream economy. The issue should no longer be whether Black America should have an alternative economy or business community, but rather what type. Like all other alternative economies or business communities, Black America needs traditional business communities built upon its group competitive advantage for the purpose of building jobs, products, and services that satisfy Black consumer basic needs and desires. Using our concept of vertical integration and thinking outside the box, Black business communities can be built in a vertical chain of obligation when a series of obligations exist between various Black businesses and Black customers. When businesses and customers support each other. In the real world, it establishes the ability to exploit niche markets. An incident in DC demonstrated the practice of vertical chain of obligation as a foundation to an alternative economy. A Black marketing organization approached a group of Asian merchants in an effort to sell them a variety of consumer items. After the Black distributors made their sale pitch, they were disappointed when the Asian merchants replied that they were not interested in buying despite a 25% discount. And the Asians merchant said, "It's not the money, but the fact that we only buy from our own. Only you Blacks will buy from anyone and buy from any and everyone." Asian merchants take pride in and respect the traditional vertical chain of obligation that exists between Asian business people. So essentially, Black Americans have never had the full alternative economies enjoyed by other groups. Step 2: dominate business ownership and management where Blacks are the majority consumer population. Black people are the dominant consumer population in numerous economic sectors, but are conspicuously absent from the business ownership. Jewelry, hair care products, athletic shoes, and other designer brands. We began to build an alternative economy by buying from Black businesses that produce what they are disproportionately consume. So blacks can begin to build an alternative economy by buying from Black businesses the products that they disproportionately consume. Doing so will not only immediately create a new market opportunity, but retain our $1 trillion buying power annually into our alternative economy. To implement the strategy for an alternative economy, the first step is to study our neighborhoods and determine if and where Black businesses would have a competitive advantage based on Black population, political control, consumer spending patterns, cultural identification, or control of resources and markets. Step 3: focus on wealth building and restoring the economic intent of the original civil rights laws. In the year 1865, Congressman Thaddeus Stevens, a leading radical Republican, which is a subset of the Republican Party who vehemently opposed involuntary slavery, wanted to aggressively punish the Confederates for seceding from the Union and to empower the Black freedmen, framed civil rights as an economic issue, saying that Black people could only be slaves or free. Without at least 40 acres of land, a mule, and $100 for an economic base, Blacks would forever be slaves. And of course, President Andrew Johnson, successor to President Abraham Lincoln, overrode Special Field Order No. 15, Series 1865. That Special Field Order were a series of military orders issued during the American Civil War on January 16, 1865 by General William Tecumseh Sherman, commander of the Military Division of the Mississippi of the United States Army. Of course, you might have heard of his march through Georgia and the Carolinas that involved very little fighting but large-scale destruction of cotton plantations, infrastructures, and freeing of any slaves that they came across, which was a systematic policy intended to undermine the ability and the willingness of the Confederacy to continue fighting in the American Civil War. So essentially, with that order, it was to provide the confiscation of 400,000 acres of land along the Atlantic coast of South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and then dividing it into parcels of not more than 40 acres, on which were to be settled by approximately 18,000 formerly enslaved families and other Black people then living in the area. These governments, which often include ex-Confederate officials, soon enacted black codes, measures designed to control and repress the recently freed slave population. General Rufus Saxon and his staff at the Charleston, South Carolina Freedmen Bureau's office refused to carry out President Johnson's wishes and denied all applications to have lands to be returned. In the end, President Johnson and his allies removed General Saxon and his staff, but not before Congress was able to provide legislation to assist some families in keeping their lands. In the 1960s, the search for socioeconomic and political rights developed into a rights for everybody and lost its focus on just black people and their economic support. It diverted an economic issue to social and political goals, made black people consumers instead of producers, focused on income inequality, vice wealth inequality, encouraged black people to become job seekers instead of becoming job creators, espoused the altruism for the world rather than self-interest, and ignored public policies that made blacks impoverished guests in America. Step number 4, counter the brain drain with businesses that aggressively attract black talent from schools, governments, and corporate America. For centuries, black parents have worked hard and dreamed of sending their children off to get a good education so they could eventually get a good job in a white business or white community. It is very inconceivable to think of a Jew, Asian, Arab, Hispanic, Latin person, or any other first-generation immigrant to the United States of America to tell their kids to go to college and work for a black person. 90% to 95% of all whites, Asians, Arabs, and Jews work for their own people within their communities. Black people became the exception. 2% of all working black people work for their own people within their own communities. So our schools, churches, and organizations must join the effort to instill value for creating employment and wealth building opportunities within our own communities to end or reverse the brain drain. Step number 5, establish root businesses within black communities. Root businesses are those that are established based on competitive advantages within black communities. Other than offering consumer products and services, root businesses are critical because they stabilize the community by offering jobs and employment training and revenues for supporting businesses and charitable organizations. Their identification with and location in the community would give them a competitive advantage as black behavior becomes more self-directed. Many root businesses already exist within black communities, but few are black-owned. Asians, Arabs, Hispanic Latin people, and Jews open up businesses in their own enclaves first before venturing into another group's communities. After establishing root businesses, ethnic businesses remain ethnic businesses. Jewish deli remains Jewish. Asian restaurants remain Asian. Hispanic Latin landscaping businesses remain Hispanic Latin controlled. Step 6. Construct vertical businesses and industries that control all processes from raw resources in the markets within and outside of the black community. It is physically impossible for blacks to compete in every kind of business in every community. Vertically integrated businesses translate into industries. Vertically integrated businesses translate into industries. But we should seek out key industries and strive to create a monopoly, which through vertical integration and locks out competition. Once a black business or industry has succeeded in building a vertical industry in one black community, it should then spread horizontally across the country into other black communities until it has control of all of its home markets. The vertical movement followed by the horizontal presentation allows blacks to establish a closed-loop production and marketing networks for the private use of black businesses. Number 7, stop the capital drain out of black communities. Buy black, but sell to anyone. Now, this step is one of my most favorites to do as a black consumer. So the story goes is that black America has a major problem. The flight of its disposable income into the pockets of other racial, ethnic, and religious groups around the world. Black people have enriched every other group except for themselves. 95% of our income goes to outside communities. 2% goes to black businesses, and then the other 3% goes into a white-owned financial institution for the money multiplier effect. It would be a rare sight to see a white person drives to a black-owned business in a black neighborhood to purchase black-made products, while the purchasing patterns of Asians, Arabs, Hispanic Latin people, and Jews indicate that they too avoid black-owned businesses, but blacks do not consciously boycott Asian, Arab, Jewish, or Hispanic Latin businesses. If those businesses systemically boycott black businesses, blacks should develop a systematic way to withhold support from them. If they refuse to hire black employees, black merchants should refuse to hire non-blacks. If they build and operate ethnic businesses in black neighborhoods, we should build and operate a black business in those non-black neighborhoods. So essentially what I did last year was I found a local black-owned soul food restaurant and became a regular customer. Later on, I grew my curiosity of that if there were more black-owned restaurants, and came across some more restaurants via the internet, and made solid business relationships with the owners by posting my product on Instagram, and they told me that they appreciated what I did for them on social media. Either it was in person or they left me a message on Instagram. Alongside the soul food restaurant, I have been to one sandwich spot, 5 fruit vegetable juice bars, 1 funnel cake spot, 1 chicken and waffle place, 2 seafood spots, 1 bakery and coffee shop, and 1 independent chef's restaurant. The ones I built business relationships, as in they thanked me on social media or in real life or both, offer me with freebies from time to time. And of course, I frequented those restaurants for obvious reasons, because the freebies and of course black economics, and then trying to rotate the black dollar more frequently into the black community. Also, I also went to black-owned websites that sell products, so toothbrushes, laundry detergent, trash bags, and oral care products. I'll probably do a video on those black-owned businesses in the future. Okay, number 8. Attract finished products into black communities for value-added manufacturing, processing, and assembling. Aspiring black entrepreneurs need to be mentally conditioned to scour every possible business community for products that black businesses can adopt, modify, and duplicate. Essentially, post-imperial Japan is a good example. Receive financial assistance for the U.S. via the 4-point plan. The Japanese traveled the world examining the efforts and products of industries in other nations. They took the ideas back to Japan and learned how to replicate and improve on what they saw in competing nations. Then constructed their wealth and industrial base on a waste not, want not philosophy. They collected every scrap of metal and recycled it into a new product similar to those produced in other countries. The Japanese purchased products produced by their own industries first, regardless of the cost and quality, because they knew their purchases would give their country industries a chance to grow and perfect other consumer products. Okay, step number 9. Promote the competitive advantages of communities. So urban black neighborhoods have excellent competitive business advantages: location, workforce, market demands, disposable income, and real estate. This nation has always had flourishing alternative economies and ethnic communities. Blacks should similarly build and promote their urban business communities and the numerous business advantage. Nearly all of the major black cities are located on natural waterways. We can build our neighborhoods into communities by using the competitive advantage of the geographic location, consumer markets, population concentration, human resources, and disposable income of black communities. And step 10, establish safe business zones based upon a code of conduct in black business communities. Of course, in an ideal setting, we want an area that is crime-free, but that's not really realistic. So we need a code of conduct that spells out acceptable standards of behavior and is promoted and enforced by all segments of the community. Increased businesses and employment opportunities for black people in the communities should be a positive incentive that reduces neighborhood crime. Step 11. Amass vision, capital, and wealth through community-based financial efforts. Without investment capital, there will be no black businesses. We get the startup capital from ourselves from our disposable income. There are 3 primary sources of amounts of capital: the public market, traditional financial institutions, and the private markets. It is a statistical pattern, however, that a high proportion of black borrowers are denied loans. Blacks must organize and operate their own banks, credit unions, savings, venture capital firms, and investment clubs. And lastly, number 12, establish international economic alliance and marketing agreements between Black America, Black Africa, and the Caribbean nations. While building its own competitive yet complementary economic structure, Black America should also play the lead role in constructing international economic alliances and market agreements between the sub-Saharan African countries, the Caribbean, and Brazil. Collectively, these nations and Black Americans as a nation within a nation have a total human population of nearly 1 billion people, yet these billion Black peoples are all economically marginalized. Therefore, Black dispersed people all around the world must unify across geopolitical boundaries and forge economic alliances that allow them to collectively share and control resources, exploit mutual trade opportunities, and compete in the global markets. An economic alliance that allows Blacks across the world to practice group economics must have 4 elements: surplus capital, middle-class skills and professional training, control over technology and raw resources, and accesses to political powers. And there you have Dr. Claud Anderson's 12-point plan for group economics for Black America to conduct. Again, it comes from this book, PowerNomics, National Plan to Empower Black America. And of course, if you want all of these books that I've actually referred to, I'm actually going to leave a link to Dr. Claud Anderson's website. Because again, I don't want to have my viewers who are Black, who are interested in group economics, to continuously use Amazon in order to get these books. Of course, Amazon is the e-commerce giant, but then again, Dr. Claud Anderson, he pales in comparison in regards to revenues, and at least selling books, Black-owned books. So again, that's also another facet of group economics, not to use corporate or government resources in order to get, and then when they get the profit, the money circulates with them. Instead, you as a Black person can actually take the money in order to buy one of his books, and then Dr. Anderson will take that money, and then he's going to make better investments with it, which is actually going to be beneficial to the Black community as a whole. And to recap, again, I got the idea of group economics from Dr. Claud Anderson. Of course, he did not create the concept, but the idea was subconsciously thought of by certain groups of people in order for them to economically and monetarily and financially empower themselves. So again, Dr. Claud Anderson, he wrote the book Black Labor, White Wealth, The Search for Power and Economic Justice. Again, that's how Dr. Claud Anderson looks like. If you want to put a face on him, if you want to recognize who he is, Dr. Claud Anderson. His first book, again, came out August 1994. I wasn't even born yet. His second book, Dirty Little Secrets About Black History, Its Heroes and Troublemakers. His third book, PowerNomics, which is where I actually got his 12-point plan on group economics. His fourth book, More Dirty Little Secrets About Black History, Its Heroes, and Other Troublemakers, Volume 2. And his most recent book came out in 2018, I believe, A Black History Reader, which is the 101 Questions You Never Thought You'd Ask by Dr. Claud Anderson. And again, those are all Dr. Claud Anderson's books, and I'm actually going to leave a link in the description on where you can actually find these books. So again, my name is Nathan L. Dawson Jr. This is All Discussions, and I will see you later. Take care and have a nice day.